Many years before glossy screens reframed how people saw themselves, and before love grew tangled in exchanges of gain, a Nugu's winding streets watched the quiet rise of Ainkwe, not yet Chief Ibkwe, not yet surrounded by power or pride, just Ainkwe, a hopeful young man, face smooth with youth, shirt neatly pressed as if each button held a secret promise, and words so sweet they could wrap themselves around anyone's heart. In those days, Ainkwe was a contractor, though contractor was really just another way of saying dreamer with a mouthful of wishes. From site to site he drifted, blueprints under one arm, optimism cradled in the other, offering smiles and assurances to anyone willing to listen. Tomorrow, he'd say, the proposal will be with you. Tomorrow is for progress. But tomorrow was always a moving target. Sometimes it felt like the only thing Ainkwe ever truly built was hope. Among those restless days, fate nudged him into the path of Dutter. Dutter was not the sort who made a room pause, her beauty quiet, her clothes simple, her eyes always searching for kindness. She valued action over appearance. What drew her to Ainkwe wasn't just his ambition. It was a way he could weave scripture into a love letter, making every expression of care sound as though angels themselves wished it. One evening, as evening shadows stretched across their city, he slipped her a note. "You are the apple of my eye." The words made her blush, but she replied with a playful wisdom. "Then keep the worms far from your apple." Their love, gentle and grounded, grew daily. And when the time came for marriage, it wasn't lavish halls or grand dances that greeted their promise. Instead, Dutter's village hosted a modest ceremony, with laughter echoing between the walls, familial hands passing plates of jollof rice that vanished before the groom's cousins even arrived. Theirs was a wedding stitched together by sincerity, not spectacle. Marriage proved sweet in its first days. They settled into a humble two-bedroom flat, a little realm built from patience and prayer. Each night, Ainkwe would come home, drop his shoes at the porch, slump into a weathered chair and call out, "Where's my angelic soup?" Dutzer, hearing him, would emerge from the kitchen, laughter dancing in her voice. "My husband, your soup is flying straight to you." Neighbors watched inside, coveting the easy bond these two shared. Dutzer, who never lost faith in work and devotion, clung to her prayers, asking only that their effort wouldn't go unseen. Yet, as the days glided by, the winds of change started to whisper, softly at first, then louder. In the corridors of power, a contract was about to be offered. One document, one signature, would draw new friends, new schedules, and a flood of new complications. Hope to keep retention. But trouble often wears a charming face, and fate loves nothing more than testing the bonds we build in innocence. As days blurred into weeks in that modest flat, the routines between Ainkwe and Dutter grew familiar, yet never dull. Their home became a refuge, a place where worries dissolved into laughter, and the outside world seemed a distant hum. Evenings sparkled with little rituals. Dutter brewing her special spiced tea, Ainkwe recounting his wild day at construction sites, both exchanging tales of their dreams for a brighter future. Sometimes their voices would dance together, creating inside jokes that only they understood. The neighbors found marvel in how the couple lived. No fancy furniture, no sprawling garden, yet a prosperity of spirit that filled the rooms. Children would run past their porch, giggling at Dutter's tales, while elders nodded approvingly at the pair's hard work and sincerity. In that quiet corner of Enugu, their story was whispered as an example, not of riches, but of real connection. But behind closed doors, challenges crept in. The money Ainkwe earned from his projects was rarely more than what kept the lights burning. There were days when frustration weighed heavy, when promises of tomorrow felt more like burdens and blessings. On such nights, Dutter would light a candle, hold his hand, and softly remind him, "Fortune favors those who wait, with hope and with faith." And Ainkwe would smile, even on the days he was certain life's dice were loaded against him. Their relationship grew layered, full of shared secrets and private moments. Dutter learned to read his moods by the way he walked into the door, whether he dropped his bag with a sigh or entered humming one of his favorite hymns. She knew when silence meant exhaustion, when laughter masked anxiety. Friends visited often. Chucks, Ainkwe's lively, loyal cousin from the next block, Amina, Dutter's childhood companion, who brought wisdom from the city's universities. On holidays, the rooms would echo with games, music, and debates, sometimes light, sometimes charged, but never cruel. These bonds acted as shields against the disappointments of the outside world. And through it all, one constant remained, Dutter's unwavering prayers. Every morning, before sun crested the roofs, she would kneel, asking for ease, for protection, and for the power to endure any storm. She believed deeply. Marriage was not just companionship, but partnership through hardship. She clung to the notion that real love meant pulling together, especially when fate pulled apart. A moment of suspense. One afternoon, as Ainkwe walked home, he noticed men in suits crowding the city square, the kind who spoke in clipped tones and handed out business cards like dollar bills. Among them, a government officer approached. "Mr. Ainkwe, we reviewed your proposal, and we'd like to discuss a contract." Shock rippled through him. This was the chance, the one he'd dreamed about all those sleepless nights. At home, Dutta saw the change in his eyes before he even spoke. "Today is different, isn't it?" she whispered. Ainkwe nodded, heart thundering. Destiny, it seemed, had finally responded, but every blessing brings its own test. As the fresh contract threatened to rearrange all their days, neither Ainkwe nor Dutter could guess the price it might demand. Cliffhanger for next segment. Some doors, once opened, may never truly close. The days that followed seemed painted in golden light. Ainkwe's name started appearing in places it never had before. Official ledgers, city meetings, whispers among the well-connected. Friends congratulated him. Old rivals softened, and neighbors started treating him with the kind of respect reserved for men on the brink of greatness. Every morning felt fresh. Every evening tinged with possibility. The government contract transformed not just their finances, but their rhythm of life. The humble two-bedroom flat grew crowded with new opportunities. Work calls stretched late into the night. Networking events filled the weekends. Sometimes Ainkwe was home for dinner. Sometimes he came back long after midnight, warm but elated, carrying expensive gifts and stories of the powerful people he'd met. Dutter watched her husband change. No longer was he the man whose hopes flickered only in prayer. Now his hopes walked tall with new friends, businessmen, corporate strategists, flashy city officials. His laughter became louder, his stories grander. But with growth, small cracks began to appear. Where once they had shared gentle evenings, now Dutter found herself alone, the soup gone cold on the stove, her prayers growing longer. She did not complain. To her, marriage was a field worth cultivating, even when weeds threatened the harvest. She soothed herself with lessons from elders. Men are like engines. Sometimes you have to pull the rope many times before they run again. Patience plants seeds, not arguments. Yet patience becomes heavy when carried by one alone. It was during these restless weeks that a new ripple stirred the city, a ripple named Bee. Bee was the kind of woman who made heads turn as she walked into a room. Her confidence was not quiet. It was a symphony, loud, proud, and wrapped in the fragrance of ambition and new money. She wore her beauty like armor and her wit like a sharpened sword. Unlike Dutter, she believed in shortcuts. She once told friends at a crowded bar, "If talent can't make you rich, then find someone whose pockets will." One particular evening, at a hotel restaurant bustling with the city's elite, fate steered Bee straight towards Ainkwe. He sat alone, reading a newspaper upside down, annoyed by the headlines, amused by his own defiance. Bee breezed in, radiant in a short crimson dress. She greeted him warmly. "Good evening, Chief." Ainkwe looked up, pride dancing in his eyes. "Oh, you know me?" he replied, half joking, half flattered. "Who doesn't know the city's rising star?" Bee responded smoothly. That was the beginning of something neither had planned. They talked with ease, a stranger's sympathy for late nights, unshared laughter, and the loneliness that sometimes clings to success. Ainkwe confided things he'd never told anyone, painting himself as a tired businessman with a gentle wife who couldn't grasp the true weight of ambition. Bee listened, eyes shimmering, playing a role only she could master, pretending to understand, pretending to care. "Men like you deserve pampering," she declared. "The world rewards kings, but too many women forget how to treat one." It was harmless at first, Just meals together, long conversations, laughter stitched with flattery. But the line between innocent friendship and forbidden connection blurs fast. One weekend, lunches became getaways. Ainkwe fabricated meetings in Abuja. Dutter believed him, trusting easily, helping him pack and send him off with prayer. May God bless your hustle. She couldn't have known just how far that hustle was straying. B wasn't content to exist in the shadows. She wanted to be more than a secret. She wanted to shine brighter than the real wife. She researched Dutter like a scholar studying for an exam. She scrolled through Facebook photos, followed business pages, even pretended to be a customer to observe every move. One evening, B mused aloud to a friend, "She dresses like a church usher but owns a man. Don't worry, I'll wear her style and tie my wrapper higher. Then Chief will see the new version of me." Whenever Ainkwe mentioned his wife's cooking, B chimed in, "Tell me how she makes it. I'll make it better." If he praised Dutter's egusi soup, B promised, "Your wife will learn from my kitchen." The contest was underway, and only fate knew who would pay the price. Suspense hooked, as new secrets tangled with old loyalties. Every choice threatened to turn love into rivalry and home into battlefield. The rivalry, once subtle, now burned with the intensity of silent wars. B became obsessed with proving herself, outshining Dutter at every step. Her strategies grew bolder, each move designed not just to impress Chief, but to unsettle his wife. She began to attend the same charity events as Dutter, slipping into the front row and greeting organizers like old friends. One evening, as Dutter quietly donated a modest sum to a local women's shelter, B pledged 5 times more, using Chief's name, causing the MC to announce, "Let's applaud Mrs. Beck for her remarkable generosity." Dutter, unaware, smiled and clapped for the woman who was secretly trying to claim her place. Outside these public encounters, B's online campaign grew relentless. She followed Dutter's Instagram business page, posed as a customer, and sometimes deliberately posted comments intended to make Dutter doubt her own worth. "Lovely dress, madam. Hope the boss appreciates fine work." Each word was a dart, carefully aimed. At home, Dutter felt the tremors. Chief's scent had changed. He now wore cologne that felt foreign, unfamiliar. She asked innocently, "Should I get this fragrance for my car? It's quite nice." Chief almost choked on his tea, grabbing for an explanation. "Maybe it's from the new car air freshener," he laughed, forcing cheer. Chief, meanwhile, was living 2 lives, one for his public image, one for his increasingly complicated heart. He justified the growing closeness with B as harmless, just friendship, maybe a needed escape from stress. The guilt simmered beneath layers of denial and justification, growing heavier whenever Dutter looked at him with patient hope. B escalated further. She invited herself to Chief's office, bringing food in expensive flasks labeled, "For my darling Chief." The staff assumed she was a wife, and her confidence made few question it. On the same afternoon, Dutter, resolving to make up for a small argument, showed up unexpectedly with Chief's favorite bitter leaf soup. She found another flask already on his desk. "Looks like my husband has an angel cooking for him," she said sweetly to the secretary. The secretary nearly panicked, murmuring, "It's from the other madam, maybe from church." When Chief saw both women's offerings, he nearly fainted with panic. "Oh, it's my business partner. She brings lunch when we have meetings," he stammered as Dutter smiled politely. "Business partner, cooking lunch. That's nice. May God bless her hands." B took the episode as a victory. "Your wife saw my food," she crowed on the phone that night. Chief groaned. "Yes, and she even prayed for you." B hissed, "That woman is dumb, Chief. It's too easy to win when the competition doesn't realize there's a game." From that day, B declared open war. Whatever Dutter did, she did louder. If Dutter donated to church, B donated more and made sure it made the radio. If Dutter wore lace to a wedding, B ordered the same from Lagos, adding glitter stones. If Dutter posted an anniversary picture on social media, B posted, "Some men are worth every risk," never mentioning the risk was another woman's marriage. But the cracks in Chief and Dutter's marriage were not visible just yet. Dutter still believed in patience. She noticed Chief buying gifts, perfume, wrappers, even new phones. Perhaps he was changing. Perhaps her prayers were working. She told her best friend, "He bought me perfume yesterday. Maybe my prayers are finally reaching him." Her friend, who'd seen the same perfume trending on B's Instagram, sighed deeply but said nothing, clinging to hope. Meanwhile, the city was stirring. Public events, chant encounters, social posts, all threads in a fabric of mounting tension. The storm was gathering, and no one yet knew who would weather it, and who would break beneath its force. Suspenseful hook. What happens when two women fight for one heart, while the whole city is watching? The simmering tensions finally reached a boiling point at one of Enugu's grand public events, a dazzling fundraiser where city dignitaries, business leaders, and local celebrities mingled beneath glittering chandeliers. Chief was invited as an honored guest. Dutta had planned to arrive late to avoid the crowds. B, seizing her moment, arrived early, dressed in a gold gown radiant enough to catch every eye. She took the seat right beside Chief, greeted hosts as though she belonged, and even received a microphone from the MC, assumed, of course, to be Chief's wife. In clear, confident tones, she thanked her husband, Chief, for his vision and strength. And then, at the precise moment when the evening's attention centered on their table, Dutta entered, her beauty understated, her presence calm but unmistakable. The crowd gasped, the MC stuttered. Chief nearly spilled his drink. B froze, but forced a quick, fake smile. "Oh, are you madam? We've met before, surely." Chief, sweat beading on his forehead, intervened. "B is our fashion consultant, always ahead of style." Dutta replied with practiced grace. "No wonder she looks like a model," and took her seat, radiating dignity. After the event, the city buzzed. Photos of both women in the same attire circulated online, fueling gossip. Some declared Dutta victorious. Some crowned B for her boldness. Chief's reputation trembled in the wind. He grew more anxious, drinking water like a man trying to swallow guilt itself. That night, B called Chief in rage. "You humiliated me. Let your wife steal my spotlight." Chief yelled back. "Should I have locked her out from her own night?" "If you love me, you'd introduce me properly," screamed B. "B, I can't even introduce you to my conscience," Chief replied, his words heavy with regret. The rivalry was no longer private. It was city news. Days passed. B stewed, sleepless, replaying every scene in her mind. Dutta was too composed, too gentle, unshaken by the chaos. "That woman is pretending," B muttered. "I must finish her before she finishes me." When emotional war failed to sway the outcome, B sought the mystical. She visited a notorious woman known as Mama Deliverance, a self-proclaimed priestess who blended prayers with questionable rituals. B, desperate for victory, brought strands of Chief's hair, scraps of Dutta's cloth, and handed over a heavy envelope. Mama Deliverance chanted, rubbed oils, tied knots around a coconut, and declared, "From today, the wife's spirit will weaken, and you will take her place." B left elated, thinking destiny had changed. That night she dreamed of crowds chanting her name. In the morning, she woke certain she was now Madame Ibque, but her victory was short-lived. Chief began acting strangely, sweating uncontrollably, his heart pounding like a racing engine. One night, he fainted at B's home. Neighbors gathered, panic spread, and the hospital became their next battleground. Both women arrived, one crying for her love, another silent in shock as the nurses debated who was the real wife. Chief, waking to both women at his bedside, uttered helplessly, "Am I in heaven or in hell?" The city gossiped nonstop. A secret video from the hospital went viral. Chief's name became punchline, B an object of ridicule, and Dutta, still devoted, still dignified, faded back into quiet endurance. But this was only the beginning. Cliffhanger ending for part 1. In the shadows of public shame and divided hearts, each character's fate twisted deeper into the unknown. The storm was here, but who would find shelter? And whose house would fall?